Welcome to the Flying Octopus Podcast, offering a new perspective on Red Wings hockey, as well as all the important news from around the NHL. And now, here are your hosts, Tony Wolak, Devin Little, and Evan Sabrin.
Hey, it's Carter Bear, and you're listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast.
You guys see the Red Wings content team with their schedule release they did this week? What'd you guys think about that?
I love that video. Just the production value of it. The whole time I was watching, I was like, wow, this is really good. Like, I know NFL teams put a lot of stock in their schedule releases, and it's nice to see the NHL jumping on that bandwagon as well. But I don't know, the speakeasy, Ken Cal's the bartender. I like the vibe of it for sure. And like sort of going back to Detroit's roots in the 20s. That was fun. I really like that. How about the briefcase too?
What's in the box?
Yeah. Briefcase gave me Seven or like Pulp Fiction vibes. Will we find out what's in the briefcase? Who knows? Maybe that's not the point. But yeah, A+ for creativity to the Red Wings marketing team and creative forces over there.
I was shocked to find out there was bubble hockey in 1926. I never didn't see that one coming. All right, quick guesses. What's in that box? I'll give you mine last.
I think it's going to be a Centennial jersey.
I second what Tony said.
Centennial jersey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I was hoping it'd be Gavin McKenna. That's you're going to get rewarded after this season in the lottery. That was the announcement. It's the draft's rigged for the Red Wings this year. Maybe not. I don't know. I did like the production value. That is pretty sweet. And so kudos to the Red Wings content team there. That was good stuff. With that, welcome to episode 45 of the Flying Octopus Podcast. I'm your host, Evan Sabrin, joined by Tony Wolak and Devin Little, as always. On today's episode, we're going to talk to Doug Stolhand from the Puck Podcast, and I really think you're going to enjoy this one. His show that he does, along with Eddie Garcia from Locked On Kings, has now been running for 19 years. They've delivered an episode every single week since 2006, and it's one of my go-to hockey podcasts. These two have been doing this so long, they weren't even called podcasts back then. They cover all 32 NHL teams with in-depth analysis, and I can tell you it's really worth a listen. Doug can also be considered a Ducks insider. He grew up in Orange County and has followed the Ducks since they became an expansion team in 1993, and we wanted to talk to him today about what the Red Wings are getting in newly acquired goalie John Gibson. Doug is a credentialed NHL media member and is someone whose opinion I highly respect in the industry, so we're looking forward to our conversation with him. Tony also wrote an article this week on Gibson for the Hockey Writers that we'll recap. We'll also get into the dog days of free agency with the Wings. Outside of the Gibson move, it's been a pretty underwhelming summer for general manager Steve Yzerman in the front office. Are there still moves to be made heading into the 2025-26 season? We'll give you our thoughts on that. The NHL schedule makers were not kind to Detroit coming out of the gate. Can we expect a rocky start to the season come this October? We'll break down the first month and what looks like a difficult road ahead. Plus, there's some new Carter Bear news to report, and our old friend and former Red Wing Joe Veleno is going home, literally. We'll tell you what that means coming up. We're going to start the show today with Doug Stolhand. I had the chance to sit down with him earlier today and take a deep dive into the Red Wings' new number one goaltender, John Gibson. Take a listen. And now, let's welcome in my good friend and colleague from the Puck Podcast, the actual longest-running NHL hockey podcast in existence. One of my favorites, hosted by Eddie Garcia from the Locked On Kings pod, and my good friend Doug Stolhand here. Now, Doug, you two have been doing this show for over 19 years. Were they even called hockey podcasts, or were they even called podcasts back then? Tell me a little bit about your guys' show and how you guys got started.
They were. It was in early summer 2006. Eddie was at a mechanic's office and waiting on his car to get fixed. And there was a local newspaper, magazine, something he was reading about two guys that started up a baseball podcast and how they were getting some success and getting some traction with the baseball media. And he said, why don't we do that for hockey? And this was right at the same time that the LA Times was announcing they were no longer sending reporters on the road with the Kings and Ducks. So we were seeing a reduction in coverage of hockey locally. We did not see a national podcast that covered all 32 teams equally. And so that's what we set out to do. And we luckily had the resources. He worked at Fox Sports Radio at the time. So we started doing it from the Fox Sports Radio studios in the very wee hours of the night. We would record at like 2 or 3 a.m. when the studio was empty. And then once we got some traction and got some money in our pockets from just life, not certainly from the show, because we've never done it professionally, we bought the equipment to allow us to do it from home. And we've been doing at least one show a week, every single week since July of 2006.
That is absolutely amazing. And I don't know how you could ever miss a week. You guys don't take a break, no vacations. You guys are gung ho. And that's one of the things. That's one of the things I love about your show is that it does cover all 32 NHL teams. And when I come home from night, sometimes late night at work, you usually come in when I'm leaving, and I'll come home and, sit down and just try to unwind. And I just want to listen to something. And the Puck Podcast is what I usually go to. And I'm a huge fan of your guys' work. And I can't thank you enough, Doug, for being here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm always happy to talk hockey. And we've had a lot of shows that have gotten started because of people that listened to our show and thought, I want to do that. So a lot of team specific shows, kind of like this one. And we love that. We love the partnership and the colleagues from around the league that are talking hockey about their favorite team or about foreign leagues. We've got European podcasts covering leagues in Germany and Sweden that are fans of ours that have been listening for a long time. And it's just when we started doing it, because as you know, right now, the national hockey media is all gone, right? They all go to the cottage as if there's nothing to talk about anymore. And I get it. You need a break. But at the same time, hockey fans are always hungry for more discussion of their favorite team. And one of the things that got us going was, as fans of West Coast-based teams, he's a Kings fan, I'm a Ducks fan, we knew that a lot of teams don't get represented well by national media. They focus a lot on the Northeast, the Canadian teams, and that's about it. So we wanted to make sure that if it's a big story in the league, no matter where it happens, it gets the coverage it deserves, it gets the analysis it deserves. And we've had the commissioner on as a guest. We've had Wayne Gretzky on as a guest. We've had everybody down to athletic trainers for NHL teams talking about what they do behind the bench during games and in the off season. So it's been a real educational experience for us. It's been fun. We've been members of the NHL media now for 19 years. So I think we were the first podcast to get recognized by the NHL as members of the media. And when it did start, as you said, they weren't really podcasts. We got looked down at by a lot of newspaper reporters who all have podcasts now or are completely out of the business. So it's grown a lot. It's been fun to see, and we're still going strong and talking hockey every week.
Yeah, you're like, look at me now, boys.
That's right. That's right. It's been fun to see their realization because it was very new back then, and now it's mainstream, obviously. And it's a great way because, as you said, it's on demand. It's when you want it to be. So we have listeners around the world. We've literally had people listening to our show on all 7 continents. And it's when you're available. And it's not, we do a weekly recap show. We're not a gossip show. We're not a rumor show. We do a recap discussion. Sure, we preview stuff, but we're not looking to break news or be that kind of person. So we're not the Wojo of hockey here. We're simply an analysis, and it's kind of a catch-all so that you can be a fan of your team and then tune into the Puck Podcast every week and get caught up on the other 31 teams to make sure you're aware of the league as a whole while you spend your time watching your team's games.
Well, I do want to pick your brain a little bit on the whole podcast thing. This is our first year of the Flying Octopus Podcast, and this is episode 45. You're just a little bit ahead of us as far as episode numbers.
Right.
But I did want to ask you, what advice would you give to people who are first starting out in this business, people who want to start a podcast and get these things going? Because when I planned out this podcast to talk about the Detroit Red Wings, I figured, hey, this is going to be super easy. I followed Red Wings hockey my entire life. I have my friends, my co-hosts, Devin and Tony, who aren't here right now, who really know hockey. But it's a lot harder than you really think it's going to be. So what advice could you give to people who are looking to start out their own podcasts?
Well, the two things I always say, that the biggest thing is it's an audio medium. And so make sure you invest in the best audio equipment you can and make sure it sounds as good as possible. Try and do the shows in person if possible, because that dynamic of being able to play off of each other's facial cues and get that energy in person is always preferred. If not, something over Zoom or where you can see each other is best. Don't just do an audio where you can only hear each other. So be able to see each other and see the smile, see the idea in their eyes, and that kind of stuff. Play off of that. The other thing is consistency. It's putting out a show so that the audience knows when to find you. A lot of people bite off more than they can chew and want to do a show every day, every week, whatever it is. Find what works for your schedule and start with that. And then, as you said, it is a lot of prep. It's a lot more work than you think it's going to be because you want to get things right. And you don't want to sound like a fool and start talking out your ass and get things wrong. So it's a lot of prep work. But if you get into a routine, it becomes much more manageable. You have to have your life, you have to have your family, you have to have your job. So make sure it's something that you can do on a regular basis that is going to be consistent. Make it part of your life. My thing, when I get home at night from work, I put on the NHL Roku channel, which is a free fast channel that they have. And it shows the highlights from that night's games every night. And it just plays them on a loop overnight. So when I get home from work, I turn that on. Maybe it's 1 a.m. I watch the highlights from all the games. I write down notes, and then I'm ready to go for the next day. I at least know what the score was, what the play looked like, what happened the night before. If I want to get more information, I'll go look it up online. I'll go deeper into that. And then when a big story happens, you have to find your best source of that information and getting it. But it's consistency. It's finding a time that works for you, the best audio possible, and make the show you'd want to listen to. Don't try and please people. Make the show you want to listen to and have fun with it. You're not getting paid when you start out. It's your show. It's for you. If the audience will respond to the genuineness that you put into the show. So be your true self. Don't try and put on a character or any facade. Be your true self and be genuine, and the show will speak for itself.
Yeah, that's really valuable advice, and I really appreciate that. And that's one thing I really enjoy about you and Eddie is that you guys have been doing this for so long. Just the chemistry that you guys click and the way you play off each other. It's sometimes it's good audio. It's fun times, and I really enjoy listening to your podcast. I totally mean that. I
appreciate that. No, I've been friends with Eddie for over 30 years now. So we've been former roommates in college. So we have a long history and kind of inside jokes. That's another thing to avoid when you're doing it with your friends. Don't put in the inside jokes because that's funny for you. Maybe your friends that are listening, the audience isn't going to know it. Create your own inside jokes within the show. We've done that with Pants Trick. We've done that with Grandma Fiddler's Game of the Week. Our fans know what that is now because we've built that into the show. That's not something we brought in. That's something that happened organically over the show. And our fans are part of that inside joke now, as opposed to being on the outside and wondering what we're talking about.
All great stuff, brother. All good stuff. Well, one of the main reasons I did want to have you on the show today as a Red Wings podcast, we are heavily invested in John Gibson, who has just joined the team in a trade with Anaheim. And as an NHL credentialed media member and a diehard Anaheim Ducks fan, we would love to get some insight about John Gibson from you. And my first question comes down to this is, the Red Wings haven't had a solid number one goalie in some time. It's hard to even think back. Maybe Chris Osgood in the mid-2000s, Dominic Hasek towards the end of his career. But Red Wings fans are pretty excited, and I'm curious if you think expectations need to be tempered for John Gibson in his first year. He did just turn 32. What can Red Wings fans expect in year one out of John Gibson from what you've seen in the past and what kind of player he is?
I got his bobblehead right above me here. I'm a fan of his, and he's a guy that is consistent. Jordan Binnington well enough. If you've been watching hockey for the last few years, he's a very streaky goalie, Binnington. If he's red hot like he was at the Four Nations, he looks like the best goalie in the world. And there's other times where you're like, I don't know if we can put this guy on the ice. He's terrible right now. Gibson does not have that. He is very consistent. There are not slumps. There are not hot streaks. He's very consistent. He's seen a massive workload. The guy saw a lot of shots over the past few years because the Ducks were terrible in a rebuild. And if we look at his performance in those games, you can see the workload eventually wears him down. And he's had injury problems, but the good news for the Red Wings is they're not the same problem over and over again. This is not a chronic ailment. He's had a hip problem. He's had a groin injury. He's had lower body injuries. He's been ill. Those are all things that are going to happen with a goalie over time. If it's more worrisome if it's, his hip is acting up again, a consistent problem. What we're seeing with Thatcher Demko worries me when I see the contract that the Canucks just gave him, but that's their problem and their risk to take. But Gibson, when he's on the ice, is very consistent, very steady, very quiet in net with his movements. He's not flashy. He doesn't make the diving save because he's very positionally sound. He's always square to the shooter, good rebound control, big frame, very even keeled in the crease. So he's not going to be a Tim Thomas where he's flying off the handle and challenging people. He did get in a fight kind of with Peter Mrazek, which is interesting that they were traded for each other, but very even keeled. And it's just a guy that is consistent. The only knock on him is his endurance. And the old saying that your best ability is your availability. He is not a guy that can play 60 plus games a year. So you're going to have a good tandem with him for the next 2 years. And I would expect 45 to 55 starts if he's healthy, if he's ready to go. We assume he is right now because he's not coming over injured, but he's definitely a guy that will give you solid play behind the defense, make the saves he has to make, is very good at the first save, and will just give you consistent quality goaltending.
Another question I have is, where's Gibson run into trouble in the past with recent subpar Ducks teams?
It's shot volume. It's just getting worn down, and the Ducks' inability to clear the puck after he makes the first save or regain possession. So when you see a guy that has, he's given up, that's why goals against average is a little skewed, because he'll give up 3 or 4 goals because the Ducks gave up 40 plus shots a night, but his save percentage is still over 90% that night. So he's making the saves. If you can get those saves down or the shots against down into the 20s, now you're looking at a guy that's only giving up 2 goals a night, and that's a game you could win. So where he runs into trouble, I think, is definitely he's not the best lateral mover in real time as far as you got to cut off that pass across the ice. If you can do that and let him stay square to the shooter, he's going to make the first save more often than not. And keep the shots under 30, ideally 35 at the most. And he'll give you a chance to win almost every night he plays. So that's really the only risk with him is if your defense as a team is so leaky, if your puck possession is so bad that the other team has the puck all night, no goalie can stand up to that over 40 plus games a year. So if you give him 3 goals on average, he's going to win you more games than he loses. And that's all you can ask for as a goalie. And it's very consistent. I think he's excited to be in Detroit, to be on a team that is building something a little bit further along in their rebuild than the Ducks and should be back in the playoff contention again this coming season.
The other question I have for you is, the Ducks have a young goaltender in Lucas Dostal, who obviously was probably being mentored by Gibson. The Red Wings also have a young goaltending prospect who's coming up, who's not as far along as Lucas Dostal in Sebastian Cossa. What kind of mentor can John Gibson be for a young and up-and-coming goaltender of Sebastian Cossa's type?
I think he's going to be great. He certainly was for Dostal, and he's shared the crease. When he came up, the Ducks had Frederik Andersen. There were different goalies that coming through Anaheim over the years that were his mentor as well. Jonathan Bernier, Ryan Miller, guys that were veterans that would teach him what they could. But he was great with Dostal. He never complained about ice time. He never complained about a shrinking role with the team. He was never a guy that was divisive in the locker room. And he is supportive. So you've got a guy that is coming in with great experience in the NHL. And I think he's going to be a very good mentor for Cossa, both in practice and on the bench in real time, so that during TV timeouts, when Cossa comes over, he's going to have basically a goalie coach on the bench in Gibson ready to talk to him about the game, about what he's seeing. And Gibson gets it. He knows he's not here for the next 10 years, probably. He's there for the next 2 years, definitely under contract. What happens after that, who knows? But he's going to do his best to make sure that Kossa's ready to play when he gets called. And if he ends up getting 35 to 40 starts a year, I think Gibson's going to be fine with that. He wants to win. He's a very competitive goalie. He wants to win. He wants to get back to the playoffs. He was the last Ducks player that played a playoff game with the Ducks. And on this active roster. So he wants to get back there, and I think he's going to do what he can to help that team and help Kosa be ready to play when he gets called.
As far as attitude and work ethic, what can we expect to see out of John Gibson?
Work ethic is always there. There was never a problem with that. He's had a variety of goalie coaches over the years and a variety of head coaches. He always put in the work. He's a fighter out on the ice, even though the team's bad, he's doing his best. The attitude is very calm, very laid back. He's not an Ilya Brizgalov who's out in space. Like I said, he's not a hothead who's going to break his stick over the crossbar if he gives up a goal. He's not going to storm off the ice. He's not going to be yelling at his teammates on the bench or being demonstrative. Very even keeled. And I like that as a Ducks fan watching it over the years. I appreciate that calmness because the Ducks often were chaotic around him, and he seemed to be the eye of the storm. So I think the Red Wings, when you have confidence in your goalie behind you, you play better as a skater. I think the Red Wings are going to have a lot of confidence in him once they get a feel for him. And once the communication gets there between his defenseman and himself on when he's stopping the puck behind the net, where he likes to put the rebounds, where they can want to outlet the puck, I think it's going to be a very solid communication. But he's going to be a leader at this point of that defensive group and of that penalty kill. And I think it's going to be pretty evident that you're going to like what you see starting in camp.
As I said earlier, goaltending has been an issue for Detroit. And one of the narratives over the years has been, the Red Wings need a goaltender that can maybe steal a game that the team shouldn't have won. Does John Gibson have that capabilities? And is he that kind of playoff goaltender if the Red Wings do advance to the playoffs this season and get rid of that drought? Is he the kind of guy that could steal a series if needed be? Because the Red Wings haven't had that elite goaltending, solid goaltender in a long time.
Well, it's been a long time since Gibson's been in the playoffs, but when he was there, he absolutely was. And he's a guy that, like I said, I think he's going to keep you in games. And that extra save that may have gone in the last few years against the Red Wings, that was the difference between getting a game to overtime and getting a point, or losing in regulation, or maybe even winning a game in overtime. That extra save, I think you can count on from Gibson. And once he gets in the playoffs, he is a big game goalie. You go back to his time in juniors, he won gold for Team USA in World Juniors. This is a guy that comes up in big moments. I think he rises to the occasion. There haven't been many occasions. The Ducks haven't played a meaningful game in 7-8 years. So you're not going to tell it from recent years, but that is in John Gibson's DNA. And he is definitely a guy that if you're in a playoff race, if you're in a playoff series, he will come up big when the moment calls for it and give you that extra save, give you a chance to win games for sure.
Doug, that's just great news to hear, and I'm sure Red Wings fans are going to love to hear that as well. And last question for you, Doug, and this is just kind of a personal, more of a curiosity for me. What were your thoughts when you saw Corey Perry sign with the Los Angeles Kings, and how do you think he'll be received when he plays his first game back in Anaheim?
I think he's been gone for 7 years now, so he's been on a lot of different teams. So that whole reunion was to celebrate Corey Perry was a long time ago, and he'll be inducted into he'll get his number retired someday by the Ducks and go into the Hockey Hall of Fame. But that first game when he comes back with the Kings, he will be booed. He will be the enemy that night. But I really don't have a problem with him signing with the Kings at this point. They're not getting prime Perry. And in fact, I kind of liked it because I know Kings fans hate Corey Perry so much that he is doing what he has always done and drive them crazy. But now he's their guy. And so they're hating. It's just I don't know. It made me laugh when he signed with them because I know it drove Kings fans absolutely out of their minds that guy's going to be wearing their jersey and they're going to have to see that guy skating around for their team and actually root for him in the sense of hoping he has a great year. So I have no problem with it. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I had some friends who were like, yeah, we're going to cancel our season tickets now. And that just, again, he gets under their skin even if he's on your home team now. So he might be the first player to get booed when he scores for his own team at his home ice. So
he will love it. He loves that. I mean, that is a guy that he's a very nice guy away from the rink, but in between the boards, that guy is a pure rectum, man. And he is going to bring it every night for whatever team he's playing for. And now that he's on your side, I think the Kings fans will, over time, begin to appreciate, like Stars fans did, like Canadiens fans, like Lightning, like Oilers, and like Ducks. When you see him doing it for your team, you're like, that's good. You drew another penalty. You got under their skin. You screamed the goalie. That's great. You're going to love it.
But you do have to hope that the curse is broken this year and that the Kings don't go to the Cup Finals. So,
well, I mean, if they do, at least I know they won't win it.
Yeah. There you go, right there. There it is. I can't thank you enough for your time today. I know you're a busy man and you got to head off to work. But real quick, I want to talk about your podcast one more time. Please tell us where we can find it and what days does it come out?
We usually post a show every Sunday night, West Coast time, so Monday morning on the East Coast or around the world. And you can find it wherever you find podcast. If you're listening to this, then you know where to get podcast: iTunes, Apple Play Store, whatever the case may be, Spotify, Sirius XM, that we're in there with the podcasts. We're also on YouTube, where we do the first period only, and we have a Patreon channel where we have some exclusives. We had a lot of draft exclusive coverage from this recent draft in LA with interviews with players and other media members as well. So that's patreon.com/puck podcast. But basically, look for us on your favorite social media platform, Puck Podcast. And then, of course, wherever you get shows, or youtube.com on Puck Podcast as well.
And I believe also a member of the Believe Network.
That is correct. That's right. We are. I forgot about that. We've been a member of a lot of networks over the years. A lot of things that have come and gone, but that is correct. The Believe Network is right.
Well, Doug, I can't thank you enough for coming on today and talking about John Gibson. It's something that I wanted to get an outside perspective of. And again, a great friend, great coworker, and I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks a lot, Dougie.
Always ready to talk hockey with you, Evan, and looking forward to seeing you back at work. And we'll be talking. I want to get your thoughts on what the Ducks are getting with Peter Mrazek, because you never know when your backup goalie becomes your starting goalie, and we may see that this season with the Ducks.
Oh man, I got some stories, dude. Some are embarrassing, but I'm willing to dish them out. So,
all right then.
Once again, Dougie, thanks. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Tony, after listening to that interview and thinking about the article you wrote this week, what are your expectations for John Gibson this year?
I'm cautiously optimistic that his injury past is in the past. Like, I know there were a couple of injuries last year that limited him to just 29 games. And obviously the Red Wings are probably hoping for more than 29 games from John Gibson next season. But at least when you look at what happened, first injury, where the first thing that kept him out was an appendectomy. And in theory, that shouldn't happen again, but I'm no doctor. So this season, my expectation is for him to play half the games and Cam Talbot to play the other half, and then Costa gets a few starts here and there. But I think it'd be best if Gibson played 40, 45 games, so that way there's not a whole bunch of wear and tear on him. The same goes for Cam Talbot. Like, he started over 50 games last season, and it's probably best if he played half the season, like a true 1A, 1B setup, where, and I think, Devin, you made this comment before, but we've had 2A, 2B in the past, but now we have a bona fide starter and a high quality backup, if you want to call Talbot that. So I would expect Gibson to get the opening night start. I know we all hold the opening night lineup in high regard, even though things change throughout the season. I expect Gibson to start, and I expect him and Talbot to sort of either rotate or go with the hot hand for a little bit, but keep the games balanced, because sure, there will be, these goalies will get banged up here and there. Like that, it's just reality. They're going to go on hot streaks. They're going to go on cold streaks. And there's going to be scheduling quirks where you're playing in back-to-back nights or 3 games in 4 nights. And you want to keep both of them fresh, because it's a long season. And if this team has playoff aspirations, then you need both of them fresh to have a chance at that. Now, when looking at what kind of team Gibson played behind at Anaheim, it is helpful that he's transitioning to, well, a team kind of in a similar boat. It's one thing to go from like a very structured, like very sound defensive team to a team that's not. The Red Wings are getting there. Their defense is improving year over year. They're getting there. They're just not an elite defensive team. I don't think anyone's going to mistake them for that. But if you take someone like Sergei Bobrovsky playing behind an incredible Panthers team and drop him into Detroit, it's not going to be as good as you think it's going to be, because he is going to be hung out to dry way more than he's used to in Florida. And that's why the Panthers are so good. They're just so sound structurally on defense. Now, Gibson played for a team that wasn't that great defensively. It hasn't been that great for a while now. And, again, the Ducks are getting better, just like the Red Wings, but at least gives him the right mindset going into the season. Sure, he's going to have to learn how to navigate the defensive zone with Detroit's players and kind of learn their systems, learn how they operate, but he's at least used to a high workload and a lot of high danger chances against, a lot of shots against, and a team that's going to block a few shots here and there. But when looking at these past two seasons, Detroit actually performed a little better defensively than Anaheim in terms of the shot volume against and the high danger chances against. So in theory, he should be in good shape, because he did have good numbers last year for when he did play. And the Red Wings, if we're looking at last year's numbers, the team didn't change all that much. Like, they're like marginally better, which is good, but at least on defense, Edvinsson and Seider, Sherratt and Albert Johansson, and then you have the third pair is going to be some mix of Eric Gustafsson, Jacob Bernard-Docker, and Justin Hall. So you're swapping out Bernard-Docker for Petrie, and that's the main difference. And I think this team can get it incrementally better, which will make Gibson's life just a little bit easier. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't see why he can't just step in seamlessly. I do think he will be the best goalie that the Red Wings have had in a long time. And I don't think it's unreasonable to expect Gibson to have a goals against average under 2.75 and a save percentage 9-10 at least. Like, he is talented enough to do that.
Well, with John Gibson being the headline acquisition this summer for the Red Wings, and me talking about the fact that there still could be moves yet to be made, what are your guys' thoughts? Do you project that there's another move coming, especially on the defensive front? Devin, starting with you.
Sure seems like they're at least going to try. You still see their names out there in terms of teams looking to make things happen. Obviously, within the trade market, and when it comes to the trade market, you got to have two to tango. So it's not just about the Red Wings' intent. You got to find somebody willing to make a deal that makes sense. So I do think they will try, and I do think that there's maybe one more move that this team can make to make themselves incrementally better before the puck drops on the season. Remember, maybe still a fresh wound here, but remember the Red Wings didn't acquire Jeff Petrie until August a couple of years ago. So it's still, I know, not the best example, but kind of just proof that like there's still moves to be made even, into August. So the roster we have today is not necessarily what is set in stone moving into the preseason. So I don't know that it'll be anything big. We've spent plenty of time talking about Erik Karlsson last week. I do think that if they do make an addition, it will probably be on the bigger side. It won't be like a depth addition. But with that being said, those types of moves are hard to piece together. So it probably won't happen before the season starts. That might be something they work on throughout the year, and then maybe that's a trade deadline move. But I guess to summarize, they'll try. You might see something happen before the season starts. But I think there's still maybe a greater chance that they'll kind of work on it throughout the summer, put talks aside, and then maybe revisit it a month or so into the season. And then that's when we actually see something more significant happen.
You forgot to preface that by saying future Stanley Cup champion, Jeff Petrie.
Yeah.
Devin, you and I are normally like on the same page for kind of everything, but I actually disagree with you on this one. I think they're done. Like, I know we've brought up the Carlson trade and you mentioned that, and I wrote an article about that, but just with the way things are looking right now, right at this moment, I don't see anything else happening before training camp. And I know we would all like for the Red Wings to make an upgrade somewhere, but I think we're getting to that point where NHL, front office members are starting to backpedal from their desk and towards their car and towards their cottage, and we won't see them again until they emerge in September. But that's where I'm leaning. If anything, I could see like towards the start of training camp, they get someone on a PTO.
Sure.
Actually, a couple of the names that I kind of circled for that route, old faces, Andreas Athanasiou and Luke Glendening. For Athanasiou, it's still young and it hasn't really panned out for him. But if you think back to when Todd McClellan was with the LA Kings, they went out and signed him after his short cameo with the Oilers when the Red Wings traded him. Like, McClellan wanted to go out and get him and bring him in because his speed does fit in with the quick transition game that McClellan likes to run. So that I can see probably not, but there's a possibility. And the other player that came to mind I mentioned was Luke Glendening, and that's sort of in the realm of they need a Tyler Mott. They need a 13th forward. And it might as well be someone who's going to work their tail off, who can contribute to the penalty kill, who has been on deep runs lately in the playoffs with other teams, but someone who can epitomize, work hard and be hard to play against. And that's Glendening. And surely Detroit fans know that. Obviously, he's at the tail end of his career. That's why he's in PTO territory at this point. But hey, if you're going to bring in someone to just round out the roster and be that guy who sits in the stands more often than not, might as well be the guy that's going to give it his all every single day, right? And plus, surely the team could probably use another backhand goal or two.
Well, I know we talked a little bit about the schedule off the top of the show, and who makes these schedules? For the Centennial season, they've really put the Red Wings right out of the gate into another murderer's row. We saw last season how the Red Wings schedule looked like towards the end of the season. But now, to start off, the Red Wings, their home opener is October 9th. Well, they'll be hosting the Canadiens. Then they're going to host the Maple Leafs 2 nights later. 2 nights after that, they're in Toronto before coming home to host the Panthers, Lightning, and Oilers. Guys, is there a realistic chance that this team starts 0-6?
I hope not. If they're 3-3 after those 6 games, I'll be quite happy. But also, this is kind of just the reality of things right now when 31 of the 32 teams are trying to win. Every game's going to be a battle.
How quick before Red Wings fans turn on this team if they go 0-6 there?
Immediately. I think 0-3, 0-2, it'd already be unbearable, quite frankly, especially with how the offseason hasn't been super active. Certain groups of fans are already looking for another reason to grab their pitchforks. So if you start with even a small losing streak, oh yeah, it's gonna get real hot in Detroit real fast.
Yeah, I'm interested to see Red Wings Twitter already started talking about Gavin McKenna early in October, if that's even a possibility, unless he's in that briefcase that we talked about at the beginning of the season.
Hey, let's not forget, Evan, after the Red Wings started out, after the Red Wings lost to Pittsburgh opening night last year, you were like, hey, it's James Hagen season, guys. So, remember, you were in that boat too.
I know. I totally am. And I will admit that. I do want to point out one other date, too, and that's December 20th, Tony, and that's when the Red Wings come to Washington. So Devin and I are going to contact your boss and make sure you work late that night. We're going to go full Lumberg. We're going to have him go full Lumberg on you, We don't need a repeat performance of you showing up at Capitals Red Wings games and what happened last season during those two.
Yeah, no, I deserve that. It's fine.
Oh, and by the way, we did forget to wish John Gibson a happy birthday. He turned 32 this Monday. So happy birthday to our new goaltender in Hockeytown. Other news and notes this week, guys. The Red Wings have signed Carter Bear, their first-round draft pick, 13th overall, to a 3-year entry-level deal. This means he is ineligible to play in the NCAA. And if he does not make the Red Wings opening night roster, he will return to the WHL with the Silver Tips. Tony, there's no chance he makes the Red Wings opening night roster, is there?
I mean, I'd be really impressed if he did, but since he's foregoing NCAA eligibility, it kind of gives a clear path to what his future is like. This next season, he'll more than likely be playing in the WHL. Season after that can return there if he wants, but also I think due to his birthday, he'll be eligible for the AHL if the Red Wings choose to stash him there. So glad he's signed. Glad that the Red Wings did that so he could potentially slide his entry-level contract 2 years. It's a nice little nuance there. Otherwise, it's good business.
Part of me was hoping that maybe there was that slight chance that he ended up at Michigan State so the Red Wings could keep close eyes on him, because after losing Gavin McKenna, I'm still heartbroken. Also this week, we saw Bowen Byram re-signed with the Buffalo Sabres 2 years at $6.25 million per. Tony, were you surprised about this signing? Is there still a chance that he could still be moved?
There's still a chance he could be moved, but this walks him right to unrestricted free agency when the contract's up. And I have to wonder why Buffalo made this move, because it's definitely not a team-friendly one.
In other free agent news, our good friend Joe Veleno signed with his hometown Montreal Canadiens. The former first-round pick, 30th overall in 2018, signed a one-way contract for $900,000. Tony, what does Veleno bring to the Canadiens, and were you surprised to see that signing?
I wasn't surprised. Figure if he's going to try to rebound somewhere, it might as well be his hometown team. So, best of luck. It's going to be a rival moving forward, but you always got to root for former Red Wings.
And for what it's worth, shout out to Joe Veleno for already having 3 of the original 6 teams under his belt, having played with the Red Wings, the Blackhawks, and now the Canadiens.
Chasing after Tyler Bertuzzi, I see. All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I always hope more for Joe Veleno, and I always liked him as a player, and I thought expectations were a little high, but it didn't work out. And I thought he showed some potential, but just didn't happen. And I wish him all the best of luck in Montreal, and I'm sure that'll be great for him and his family to be playing in his hometown. Well, that's it for today's show, guys. It's the summer. This is the hardest part of the year to come up with content, and it's been pretty quiet these last couple of weeks with the Red Wings. Tony, Devin, I know you guys both have articles coming out. Talk to us what you got coming up on the horizon here.
Yeah, so next week I'll have an article coming out on identifying the Red Wings' next contention window. That was a fun little exercise for me, and then also looking at contract projection for Simon Edvinsson if the Red Wings choose to re-sign him this summer. Well, I can't say choose to re-sign him, if the two sides actually agree to get something done.
Let's hope they re-sign him.
I think that'd be a good idea. Devin, what about you?
Well, as I think I've advertised maybe once or twice already, I do have a top 25 Red Wings prospect ranking coming out at the end of the month. Very much hard at work on that one. It's always a monster. And then I did just put out a 3 Red Wings prospects that are entering a really critical season. Go check that out over at the Hockey Writers if you haven't already.
Yeah, guys, fun show. I really appreciate Doug Stolhand coming on today's podcast. He's been doing this for a long time, and he gave us some good advice that we'll take to heart, and really appreciate that, Doug. And if you haven't, check out the Puck Podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, iTunes, Spotify, just the same places where you find us. And they're really good. They do a good recap of they literally go through every NHL game every week. It's amazing what these guys do. And they've been doing it for 19 years. They have never missed a week of show. So I literally zone out with that show when I come home after a long night of work, and it's just, it's good stuff. So check that out if you have the time. We will be back next week with more content. Hopefully, Steve Yzerman's working those phones and we have something more to talk about. So until then, make yourself a Mo Cider or a Russian 5, or what was the other drink Ken Cal said to make in the schedule release video?
All coffee.
A Paul coffee. There you go. Have fun. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast. Follow us on YouTube at the Flying Octopus channel and Twitter at Flying Octopod.